heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Hey everybody, Lady Cheryl here, and I'm going to share with you how I make my spicy tomato jam. This time I'm going to make it a little hotter by adding jalapeno peppers. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I did was I took my tomatoes that I had stored away from the summer harvest. I took them out the freezer. Okay, everybody, so now it's the next day, and I let these thaw in the sink at room temperature, and this one is still froze. Some of them are still froze. And all I do is take a little paring knife and take out the top stem. I don't worry about the bottom unless it's unattractive like that. I don't try to remove any seeds, and because I'm going to pulverize this in the blender. Okay, I'll be back after I load the blender up, and I'm going to add jalapeno peppers and spicy red pepper flakes. Everything that I grew in my garden. I'll be back. I took 10 medium-sized to small jalapenos, cut the stems off right here, and I'm adding them to the blender. And this was 3 quarts of tomatoes. I still have a few tomatoes in here, and after this is pulverized some, then I will add the rest of the tomatoes. The last time that I made this, I added, I believe, honey. And today I'm going to add monk fruit because I've been using this and loving it. It's natural, and it doesn't have any carbs, any glycemic index, calories, and you use it equal portions of sugar, like real sugar. But yeah, so I always start out slow and just to see what it's going to do, and then I will increase my speed. I hope you can hear me. I'm pulverizing that really good, just for a little bit, and then I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to add the rest of my tomatoes. I'm going to add about the contents in this bag, which is about 1.5 cups of monk fruit. I don't really like it real sweet, but I do like it spicy, so I'm going to add some red flakes too. Okay, so I added 1/4 cup of the red flakes, and I added about 1.5 cups of the monk fruit sweetener, so I can eat this guilt-free, okay? No calories, no glycemic index, no carbs, just from the tomatoes, the peppers, and the red pepper flakes. Now, I'm getting ready to cook this. I'll be back when I have it on the stove. Hey, so now I have my big pot on the stove, and I'm going to cook this down. I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to reduce the heat and let it simmer for as long as I need for it to appear to be like marmalade or preserves. And I'll bring you back when it gets to that consistency. I can't tell you how long it's going to take because it depends on if you're using fresh tomatoes, frozen tomatoes. I'm going to link the video to when I made this previously. I think I used honey, as I was saying earlier, and I think I gave you exact measurements for that video. Okay, all right. Let's tell you, you can't stand over this and inhale it a lot because of all of those jalapeno peppers and the red flakes, and you must constantly stir it, especially while it's coming to a boil, because you don't want it to stick and burn and scorch. It'll alter the flavor, so keep your spoon handy. Excuse me. See, just talking over it, I inhaled the fumes of the pepper flakes and the jalapenos. So reduce the heat as soon as it comes to a boil. One thing I failed to say, you can add a little salt. You know, I've been doing a sodium-free diet for years because of kidney disease. So I rarely add salt unless it just doesn't taste good without it. But you can use Himalayan salt. You can use whatever salt that you want to use. You add it at this time. And you're going to constantly stir this until it comes to a boil. Then you occasionally stir it, and while it's simmering, but leave the top off so that you can check the consistency. Okay? You can see that the jam is now just about to a boil. You can see the little bubbles. I accidentally stirred it before I started filming, but it was boiling. So now I'm going to reduce the temperature and just check it every few minutes and stir. And we're going to condense this by letting all of, or a lot of the liquid cook off, evaporate. Okay? Okay. Now it is time to put this into a simmer by lowering the heat. So let's turn it down even more. I guess I'll turn my vent on. So you can see it's still boiling, but it's on low heat. Okay, I'm gonna turn the fan off because we don't need it anymore. And you can see that it is simmering nicely. I'm gonna go in closer so you can see. And you can see that it has condensed, meaning that the water has evaporated. And yeah, it's getting really thick now, guys. When it cools, it'll be thicker in consistency. I didn't add any type of pectin or thickener in it. I'm just condensing it because tomatoes have a high amount of natural pectin in it. So you don't need to add that thickening agent to it. Just let it keep simmering. It's been about a half an hour. And I'm not going to turn the heat up high. I'm not going to put a top on it. And the reason why I put it in this large stock pot here is because I can keep it from, it being the jam, from popping up into my face. You know, it has a long way to travel before it pops up. So that's why I use a large stock pot. You don't have to. Guys, you can add regular sugar in this if you want to. You can add honey. I've seen people put a little molasses in it. You can do that. If you want to put pectin in it, you can. If you like it real thick. I don't like a lot of sweet stuff because I'm not supposed to have all of that. But you can do it, okay? So I don't like to give you an exact recipe. However, I will say that I used 3 quart bags of frozen tomatoes to approximately 1.5 cup of monk fruit. Now, some people will add the same amount of granulated sugar that they do for tomatoes. For example, if they put 5 cups of tomatoes, they'll put 5 cups of sugar. I can't. Being pre-diabetic, I cannot have that sugar like that. So you need to modify this recipe for yourself. The only thing that I didn't share with you that I'm going to put into this jam is lemon juice to make sure that it is acidic enough to water bath can. And I'm going to add that lemon juice at the end. It'll be a cup of lemon juice, and that'll give it a little tart taste to go along with the spicy sweet taste. But I don't want the lemon juice to evaporate while I'm condensing my tomato jam. So I'm going to add that at the last minute before I put it into my jars. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, guys, it's been about an hour, and I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to tell you why. Because I know I'm going to turn the fan on so this can clear up the steam just a few seconds so I can show you a test. You see it's clearing up? So I'm going to turn that fan off so you can hear me, and I want you to know that you can see this line. This is where it was originally. And it has reduced in half. has condensed. Now I'm going to take some of this and put it on the spoon. And you see how it's difficult for this to come off? That's going to gel up when it cools off. Let's try it again so you can see how slowly it comes off. And some just sticks all together. It would be at this point, since I've turned it off, I'm going to add my cup of bottled lemon juice. And that's just to make sure that it is acidic enough for me to water bath can. And I'm going to mix it up really well. And that is hot. And it tastes delicious. Some splattered on my hand because I was stirring too vigorously. And we're ready to water bath can. I'll be back. Time to start ladling everything up in the jar so that I can water bath can it. As you can see here, I have the water bath can already heating up because this jam is hot. The jars have been sanitized in boiling water, turned upside down. All the equipment, everything, the ladle, everything I'm working with has been sanitized in boiling water. So now I'm going to ladle up a jar just to show you how it goes. And this funnel right here will keep everything from splashing all around. So I'm going to take a scoop and put it in. Let's get another one. Make it off. The trick is to try not to be so messy. And so it's going to take about 2.5 scoops. I want it to come right up to, let me show you, get closer. I want it to come right there up to that first line. Okay, and you can see the smoke. This is hot, so I can't hold it long. So I'm going to put it right here. Then I'll take the next one and do the same thing. Okay, I'm just going to show you twice. I don't want to make a real long video. And I'm going to put it here. 1, 2 and a half. A little bit less than a half. So let's do another one. I said 2, didn't I? So I'm going to take a sanitized spoon. I'm going to dip it into that canner right over here that's boiling or getting ready to boil. I'll remove a little bit of that. I'm going to fill all these up and then I'll come back. I have all of the jars filled. And the next thing I'm going to do is use my debubbler. And that's this little thing like a spatula here. And I'm going to dip it all the way down into the boiling water. And I'm going to just go around the sides. Let me see if I can get this into focus. And just make sure that you get all the bubbles out. Okay? After I do that, then I'm going to clean the rims. I looked at my journal the last time I made this. I got 8 of these jars. This one is not quite full, so I condensed it probably more than I did the last time. I don't know. It's not an exact science. Just debubble it. And the more liquid you have, the less bubbles you're going to have. So you really don't have to do this if you don't see any bubbles. But I'm just doing it for the sake of the video for people that are new to canning, to show them the procedure. And by the way, when I washed my glasses, my jars, and put them up, I turned them upside down in the canning box so dust and stuff like that can't get in them. But I washed them again and I examined them to make sure that there are no chips or nicks in any of the jars. If you have one, throw it away. Now I'm going to show you what I do next. Here is my distilled white vinegar, and I took some and I poured it into this bowl here, and I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to use that vinegar to sanitize. Yes, vinegar is an antiseptic and it will sanitize the jars. Anytime you have sugar or oil, you want to make sure that you wipe these rims around, all the way around, just this part right here that comes in contact with your lid. Okay, you want to make sure that you wipe those real good. So I'm going to take a little vinegar And then I'm just going to wipe around here. And I do this more than I should. I'll do it like 3 or 4 times before I apply the lid. Okay, I got that one messed up. Let me start again. Okay, I have wiped the lid several times. I do that until there isn't hardly anything on the paper towel. The next thing I'm going to do is take my sanitized lid, and I'm going to put one on each jar with my magnet lid lifter. Okay, and then after I do that, then it will be time to put the rings on. You do not have to sanitize the rings. They will not come in contact with the food. Okay? So make sure that you warm these. Balls say don't boil them anymore, but I actually keep them in the water a little bit longer than they recommend. Because I'm a little old school and I know that I'm not pressure canning, so I want to make sure that everything is nice and sanitary. And then I'm just going to, see right here, I'm just going to screw it with just these 2 fingers. And that's it. Don't try to make it really super tight. Okay? Because you want all the pressure. Okay, so this one fell down. It'll go back into the pot of boiling water, and we'll sanitize that one again. Balls recommend that you only use the lids 1 time. I know canners will use them several times. I don't. And the reason why I know that these have not been used, because they don't have a date on them. I put the date, the month, and the year right there on them. But I do keep the lids, and I use them for crafts and experiments, you know, when I'm making a new product or something. So I'll come back when all of these are on, and I'll get that other one out of the canner and put it in here. Put it on too. All of my lids are on. I take the rest of my vinegar and I put it into my canner, because that vinegar is known to help your jars to get prevent them from getting real cloudy. And then all I'm going to do is just load up my canner. I'll be back when it's loaded. Now I have the canner loaded. Okay. And it is, the temperature in here right now is a little bit over 105 degrees. I have my thermometer here. Once it reaches 180 degrees, which would be about right there, then I'm going to lower it, put the top on, reduce the heat, and process it for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes is up, I'm going to turn the heat off and let them just stand in the hot boiling water for about 5 minutes, and then I will remove them. I will not retighten the bands. I will not press down to make sure that they're sealed. I won't do any of that. For these jars that have been water bath canned for 15 minutes, I would just sit them on a towel or a cutting board, cover them up, and let them stay unbothered for 12 hours, okay? And then I will just wash the jars off, remove the bands or the rings, and put the date on them. Let's see what the temperature is now. It hasn't moved too much. I'm going to put it into a different spot. Make sure it's getting all the way down in the, you know what? It's not reaching the water. So I'm going to go ahead on and just put this down in the water very carefully so that I can get an accurate reading. Because, yeah, I remember that happened to me before. Let me get my hand out the way. And you can see it's hotter than it appeared to be, because right now it's about 130 degrees. It's moving up quickly. Go down there a little deeper. Ooh, it's hot on my finger. About 132, 33, 34. When you get to that next big line, it'll be 140. And this is pretty hot, so I'm just going to move back, take the thermometer out, come back in about 5 minutes, okay? All right. I won't do any of that. For these jars that have been water bath canned for 15 minutes, I would just sit them on a towel or a cutting board, cover them up, and let them stay unbothered for 12 hours. Okay? And then I will just wash the jars off, remove the bands or the rings, and put the date on them. Let's see what the temperature is now. It hasn't moved too much. I'm going to put it into a different spot. Make sure it's getting all the way down in the, you know what? It's not reaching the water. So I'm going to go ahead on and just put this down in the water very carefully so that I can get an accurate reading. Because, yeah, I remember that happened to me before. Let me get my hand out the way. And you can see it's hotter than it appeared to be. Because right now it's about 130 degrees. It's moving up quickly. Go down there a little deeper. Ooh, it's hot on my finger. About 132, 33, 34. When you get to that next big line, it'll be 140. And this is pretty hot, so I'm just going to move back, take the thermometer out, come back in about 5 minutes, okay? And on that, let me just tell you, if you see any little particles around, that doesn't mean anything escaped from your jar. It could have been on the side of the jar, it could have been on the bottom of the jar, so don't freak out if you see some. Now, even if you are pressure canning or water bath canning, some liquid can escape out of the jar. It's supposed to. Okay, so don't worry about that. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You're going to have some siphoning. That's the word I was trying to think of, siphoning. Okay, so while I'm here, let me go ahead and just recheck the thermometer. And I don't use this all the time. I'm doing it for the sake of the video. Let me get close over here because this is hot. Click this right here on the side. Yeah, it's hot. But I do use this in my candle making. I just happen to have it out. It needs to go to 180 degrees. Let me see if I can steady my hand. So we're right now at 141 degrees. I'll come back in a little bit because it needs to get to 180 between that 150 and that 200. So I'll come back. Okay, now we got it. We're at 180 degrees, so we can take this off, put the top on, and let it boil for 15 minutes. I'll be back when the 15 minutes is up and I have let the pot cool down for 5 minutes. I think I better move that towel away from that canner. I don't want a fire. Wow, I'm telling you guys, my kitchen is cluttered, and it's one of the things I'm gonna get more organized in the new year because I'm trying to do so much in this small space. Let me get that towel out the way. Okay, so the timer went off, and I have my jars out of the candy pot. I want to show you something real quick. I just like to give little tips as I'm showing you how to can. This is what you pick up the jars with. You put the wood part in your hands, and the rubber part goes over the jar. Let me pick this one up. Let me move this a little bit. So let me see if you can see this. Okay, yeah, you can see it. So the rubber part is touching the jar, and it will cling to the jar because they're super hot. And then this part right here, the wooden part, goes in your hands. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is just put a towel on top of these, and that just keeps the heat in. And I've already heard some of them pop as I was taking them out of the canner. And we're going to leave these undisturbed for 12 hours. And 12 hours will be late or early morning while all the shooting and the celebration is going on. And I'll be in bed real early. So I won't label these as far as putting the date the month and the year and washing the jars off and removing the rings. Some people keep, lift this up and let you see this. Some people keep these rings on. I don't, because I know that it can cause a false seal. But I hear people say they keep them on because they prefer that and they just check them all the time. Okay, so whatever you prefer to do. But I keep my rings off of my jars. Okay. Thank you for watching, everybody. Bye now.